say? Hello, right here in beautiful Frisco, Texas. Of course, I'm your host of the Swypit Show. And today we're going to be bringing on a wonderful guest and talking to him in a moment. But of course, I don't want you to forget to like, share, maybe comment, ask a question. And if you like what you see, maybe you want to talk to us or talk to one of our guests, please feel free to contact them or us. We are obviously looking to help people. That's what we do at Swipe It. That's what we do. We do is nothing but helping people. And when you help people, they tell others. When they tell others, well, you can become somewhat successful in business by like me, I'm kind of new in the credit card processing business, about 23 years, 4 years. So I'm still new. But, one of the things about having a business is relationships. And that's what I want to talk about today is relationships. Relationships in business can make you so successful in your life, in your business, in anything that you're trying to accomplish. And I want to bring up two relationships I have that I love the most. I want to talk about first. I got to talk about my good buddy, Major Andrew White. Look at this right here. This is a book. He is a best-selling author that he co-authored a book with Kenny Thomas, a very, very awesome, great singer who actually was, if you've ever seen that movie, Black Hawk Down. Well, he was part of that movie. He was one of the guys that was on the field running around corners. And let me tell you, this is a war hero, both of them. These of course, Major Andrew White is one of my best friends in the world, and he is so awesome, and he deserves everything right there. So if you get a chance, I want you to pick up this book. You see it somewhere, Mission Driven, with Kenny Thomas and retired Major Andrew White. Of course, good book there. So plug for some books I want you to check out. And then, of course, we're talking about relationships, right? Andrew being one of the awesome relationships that we have. And I want you to know about another relationship that I've had for many years, actually. And, you know, coming up on June 26th, I'm doing a private screening of a movie, and we can actually, maybe, you know what, well, let's bring that up. Maybe you want to go and you want to check it out. If you reach out to me, you can come and see the old Tactical Empathy movie that even Ryan, our producer, was involved with. And Tactical Empathy, I'm the executive producer of. It happens to be the life story of Chris Voss, who his book called Never Split the Difference, negotiating as if your life depended on it. And he has one of the best and most successful master classes on Facebook, if you've seen those. He'll be right here in Frisco, Texas, answering questions before the movie. And then we'll have some pictures with him later after that. So I really want you to get on the bandwagon first, because we are going to be having only 156 seats for that. So I'm telling people now that it's going to be happening on June 26th. So right here, make a note, Ryan, please. June 26th, let me start over. June 26th, meet Chris Voss at a private movie premiere of Tactical Empathy. Yes. Yes. So if you want to be there, get a hold of me. These are relationships, right? If you have a relationship with somebody, you can maybe get involved with stuff and see things that you maybe never would have been invited to, right? So here I am inviting you to come out and see a very cool movie that I have seen a few times. We've already premiered it in Vegas, and we premiered it in California at the Beverly Hills Hilton. And of course, Ryan was there working the red carpet and having a whole bunch of fun. But we are very excited about that. So I'm meeting with friends and people. And one of those relationships I have a post-it note here to go see this guy. And, I went over to go see him yesterday. His name's Dorian. And he helped me get a Sprinter van and a new car I say a couple years ago. I think it may be three, might have been 6, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, probably. Wow, I can't believe it's that long ago. But, we've kept in contact. I've seen him grow and where he's at. And guess what? He's going to be opening up a brand new dealership up in Oklahoma. And he's got great plans. And he goes, I was going to call you. I'm like, well, I was coming to see you. So I came in to invite him to come to the movie because I thought it would help him in negotiating, and maybe his team that he's working with right here in the DFW area might be able to be helpful with. But it actually turned out that he was going to contact me for credit card processing needs. And this is where relationships come into play. I could have hammered him at his place of business and where he worked, but of course, I don't have to do that. I just have doing the right thing, taking care of customers, and doing what's best by people, not having to go, hey, you got to work with us. You got to work with us. No, our customers, they tell others for us. We tell, people about what we do. And, if they feel the need that they want to talk to us, you can get a hold of us. We will help you be successful in your business, because we're going to have people like our next person coming up on the Swypit Show. It's, of course, a good friend of mine. I've known this individual for many years. One reason I know him is because his wife and my wife, well, they went to school together from like kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And my wife was in his wedding, and his wife was in mine, and my wife was in his. And the weekend that they got married, I asked my wife to marry me. So I have to ask Paul what year that was. So, of course, let's bring Paul Boyd into the world of the Swypit Show. And welcome to the show. Paul is the CEO of Force Scaling, longtime friend, of course. So, we're going to get into this, Paul. And I got to ask a question because, I even asked Sarah, I go, hey, Sarah, when did Paul and Tracy get married? And she goes, I don't remember the year, but that's the time that you asked me to marry you. And I go, yeah, I know, but what year was it? So, Paul,
October of 1995, Kevin. You're
1995?
That's right.
Wow. So 1995, I asked my wife to marry me, and you got married.
That's right.
Yeah. So welcome to the Swypit Show. Of course, Paul, if anybody has questions for him while we're doing stuff, pop in. I might see it over here, of course. But, I've known Paul for how long, Paul? It's got to be, is it 30 years?
For 20 years, yeah.
25 years.
It's over 25 years.
And I have to thank you because you have, you've helped me in my business, and I refer you to my clients for a reason. And you've referred me to clients. I process your credit cards. Listen, business is about relationships. And when you can figure that out, you will find that the things that for scaling, what they do is they help people find ways to do their business by hiring and doing things with people that are more successful than they are in what they do. And then you have a team of really unbelievable people within your organization, and then you can run a smooth organization. But I don't want to go too far into what you do, but let's bring Paul into the picture. Paul, what the heck do you do now? Because I love you, of course, and our guests want to know what the heck you do, because I'm going to stop talking now because I'm so excited to have you here. So tell everybody what Paul Boyd does.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I always love your what the heck.
Yeah, the what the heck show. Yeah, we don't do that one anymore.
Come to what we do after I talk a little bit about how and why we do it. So
yes.
So why we believe businesses only push past their plateaus when leaders live in their unique purposes and strengths is they really have to trust others to do what they can. So we, my team, we really see solutions that maybe other people don't. And that's really important to us, is we want to help, especially entrepreneurs, push past those plateaus. How we do that really is our experienced team will kind of be able to see that path, and we'll start to walk alongside the CEO along with their executive team, kind of building trust through not only the expertise, but just that we're with them every single week in their meetings, what they're doing, and we're coaching them along. So ultimately what Force Scaling does is we provide the talent, training, and tools that help organizations ascend to new heights when they need to grow their business, or maybe they're flat and they want to get unstuck, maybe run a little bit more profitably, or just have better quality of life.
Yeah, and you do that by hiring the right people, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know how many times you've told me you got to get an executive assistant that can, take over some of the little things so that you can go out and take care of the clients in different ways and give that, unique swipe it feeling to customers. And of course, I kind of fought it, and Sarah was like, "You got to get somebody to help you." And so, of course, I finally gave in, and I gave up the schedule, and I said, you got to talk to Brenda. And, I mean, I used to have everything in my head, right? And
Right.
and that's not good. So yeah, I'm grateful for all what you have done to help me be, better at what I do. And I actually mentioned this to somebody just the other day, and it made me think back to when you were across the street at this one company. I guess it's got to be, I'm going to guess, maybe 12, 15 years ago. I don't remember when it was, but I remember being in your office. You had this whiteboard, and we went up there and we scribbled some stuff on there, and we looked over some different things, and you told me that I had 18% year over year growth in business.
That's
And
right.
I had no idea what that really meant. And you gave me specifics of how I can, I mean, obviously, not everybody has that. Even through COVID, I had growth. So it's, I owe you a lot of appreciative thank you, gratitude for helping me in many different ways in business. And, I think that people, if they go to your website, I want to bring it up right now. I want people to know what it is. It's Force Scaling, FORCESCALING.com. And when you go there, I found that there's something there that I really love. And people don't realize that force, and I got it over here, stands for a few things. Would you like to go over what force is? Because it's probably the mantra of the company, right?
Absolutely, Kevin. I appreciate that. For scaling, really wanted to help our clients by creating a roadmap, right? It doesn't mean it's set in stone because every path to progress is unique.
Sure.
Like we were talking about with the 18%, year over year growth, like how do we lean into that or build upon that? So we like to always start kind of like Stephen Covey, right? Start with the end in mind. So the future focus is pretty critical step. We like to just get it to a 1 to 2 page business plan so that everybody knows where we're heading together. And then with a crystal clear vision on where we're going, which will include, really an impact goal. So we actually measure our vision or our why. And then we'll have really clear 1 and 3 year plans. And then we'll actually make sure that we have the right organization structure, right? The right organizational structure to achieve that 1 and 3 year plan. So we might not have it today, but what are those big moves we're going to make together as a team to put the right people in the right seats, as you joked earlier, Kevin? And then how are we going to measure what success looks like for each of those roles? So not only are we going to have role clarity, but we're going to have great scorecards, not a P&L, not a profit and loss statement ramrodded into weekly goals, but actual scorecards to say, like, what are those important actions that we're taking every week to hit that 18% year over year growth. And then that kind of starts to foster the culture. So in that 2 page business plan, the future focus, we have our guiding principles, a really clear vision so everybody knows why we get out of bed every morning. They're not going to get out of bed to make you and me more money, but if we're impacting lives or we're actually, transforming companies, back to relationships, right? We don't want everything to be transactional. We want everything to be transformational. That will be a culture that's lived out. We don't want to just create a bunch of new values and throw them on the wall and nobody can say what they are. And then
Yeah.
ultimately that leads to execution, right? We want to execute with excellence. Like we want to make the most of whatever we have. If we don't have 250 grand to buy new software, we don't need to do the new software. We'll work around Excel or whatever we need to do, but let's make the best with what we've got to get where we want to go together. So that's what FORCE stands for. It's the 5 elements to lighten the lift, hence FORCE scaling. So we believe those 5 elements working well together will really change the lives of an executive team, especially for the CEO and the people that are leading that charge.
And some people don't realize, you have to dive deep into what's been going on in your business to make it. Sometimes you have to look at the past to be able to look to the future. And a
Sure.
lot of people just look at the future. Oh, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to buy this, or I'm going to get this specialized equipment. Well, you have to actually look at your past and how those, KPIs are working to be able to make the right decisions. But you also need outside forces of people to see an inside look of what you're doing to make the correct decisions of what you're going to do in your business. And one of those things that you folks are doing is you have like 2-day boot camps, you have 10-day executive management training stuff. And, not everybody needs all of that. They might just need, a fresher upper, and that would get them on the right course. But those are people that have actually looked in the past already. But I think that once you get somebody like for scaling to come in and look at your company and really dig deep into everything, you're probably going to be hiring people like this for longer than just 2 days, 10 days, because those sometimes can just be a band-aid. And then you're actually, and I've actually been through some of your stuff because you you kind of hold people accountable. And I was just like, listen, I can't do this anymore. Okay. I guess it, I mean, what worked, what you taught me, I've implemented, and it's really those little tweaks. It's like a gas stove, right? So you turn on the gas, and if it's the gas is too low, you may never be able to get that water to boil. But if you just get it just right, and you get that water boiling the way you want it, bam, you can make food, right? You can eat and
Absolutely.
survive. And I mean, I don't know. That was probably the strangest analogy I've ever made for something, but it just
Well, it
came
was
to
a
me.
great analogy, and I'll just take it one step further, Kevin.
Yeah.
We often don't realize that the really simple things may or may not be easy, right?
Yeah.
So, our grandmas used to take a little wooden spoon and they'd set it across that boiling pot so it doesn't boil over. And like our kids and maybe even a lot of our peers, our friends, right? They don't know that. So they just let the water boil all over and they're making the mess on the stove. But if you just take that simple little wooden spoon and you set it on top of the pot, man, you're golden, right? And so that's kind of what we do for a lot of our clients is we kind of help them see the simple things, and then we walk alongside them every week, running their executive leadership meetings and coaching their executives one-on-one so that they can step up, so that they can actually deliver and execute with excellence. And so it can be a lot of fun. So accountability doesn't have to be bad, right? We can still have fun.
Exactly.
If it's
What
fun, it's not work.
what what type of companies do you typically work with? I mean, in terms of size, do you
Sure.
want the Chevy? Do you want the GM, companies, or do you want like smaller merchant type organizations?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? I mean, can the
Yeah. So
local
usually it's
florist
a
shop help you or help them? Talk to me about that.
That's a great question. Our ideal client is probably an entrepreneurial organization that is doing more than 10 million in revenue. You know, they have maybe it's a million in EBITDA, but right, they have the earnings to invest in the future, and they're going to have more than 25 employees. If they're smaller than that, they're probably not really going to need our help. They might really take advantage of just the 2-day executive leadership boot camp or a 10-week customized training program. They're not going to want to hire a part-time or fractional COO to step in and really help them see what great looks like and decide whether they want a full-time person.
Exactly.
And that's usually what we'll do. Is the industry doesn't really matter. One of our team members always jokes 70% of business is the same in any business. There's probably some truth to that, right? I mean, the reports
Absolutely.
are important, the people are important, but the force framework is pretty basic, applied to many industries, whether that be oil and gas, insurance, or even financial services, right? So our clients run the gamut in terms of industries, but really it's that size, right? We've definitely had the significantly larger clients with hundreds of employees and north of 120 million in revenue, but that's not our typical sweet spot. And we've had one or two clients that maybe have 2 million in revenue for the year, but usually it's going to be north of 10 million. So that's about the size.
That's a good number there. I will tell you that most business owners that may be listening or watching, even you know the larger companies, but anybody that's actually seeing this is going, "Well, I don't know if I need that. I don't know if I could figure this out on my own." And I've been there and I've thought of that. I've watched, but what people fail to realize is they have to continually learn new processes. They need to continuously learn new things that are actually justifiable for this day and age. You know, if you're not on social media, I mean, what as much as I hate social media, I love social media. So I mean,
Yeah.
if you're not actually on social media, that's a big problem. You know, maybe you haven't updated your website in a short, specific point of time, right? But this is where you folks are going to come in and look at that and give a unique perspective. And, you know, does something like this cost money? Well, everything costs money. But what does it cost you not to do that, right? What does it cost you not to be paying attention to all those little details? So that's going to lead me into what is it that you're reading today? Because I know, man, you are a big reader. You love to read. What's the book you're reading right now? If I was to see it on your desk, what is it?
It's called Slight Edge.
What is it?
Slight Edge. And
Flight?
it's
Like a
like
like
SLIGHT, slight, like just a little bit,
oh,
slight,
slight.
slight edge.
The
Yeah, it was a
slight
gift
edge. Oh, I
from
like that.
yeah, it was a gift from one of our clients. I'm only a few pages in. It's at home. I can't remember the author off the top of my head.
Well, that's
And
fine. I
then
can find out.
I'm also about halfway through another book that I started, and I've just been trying to keep up with all my client reading, right? And it's called Nobody Cares Until You Do. That's written, co-written or co-authored by a friend of mine, Robert Hunt. So those are the two books I'm currently reading.
So, slight edge, turning simple disciplines into massive something.
That's right.
It doesn't let me just click on it on Amazon just to check it out, right? The Secret to Successful Life? No, that's not it.
Yeah,
No, turning simple disciplines into massive success and happiness. Is that the one?
that's the one.
Yeah, so that's a looks like a pretty interesting book. In a way of thinking, a way of processing information that enables you to make the daily choices that will lead you to the success and happiness you desire. Very interesting. And Jeff Olson is the author of that book.
That's right.
Well, we're gonna have to get it and check it out for sure. And then the one that you have, your friend that co-authored, what was the name of that one?
Nobody cares until you do.
Yeah, nobody cares until you do. And you know that's interesting because a lot of people just don't care about what you're doing, right? But
Yeah,
until until they
until you do. It's all
yeah,
about
they're like,
self
oh,
accountability, right? And that's kind of comical, but
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
is a true thing. So
You
true.
know, you just mentioned a word accountable. And I am literally so yesterday I was talking to somebody and I was saying you got to start holding people accountable. And one of the and I've, listen, we're in every state in the country except Alaska. We are trying to hold, people hold us accountable. I try to hold employees accountable. I've talked to people and I go, listen, I'm going to hold you accountable, and I tell them straight out, I am going to hold you accountable. And the reason I'm trying to help hold you accountable is because if you're not paying attention to what you're supposed to be doing for me, how are you going to be doing it for others? So, I was talking about this yesterday, holding people accountable. And I said, you know what? I think you need to talk to my friend Paul because I think he would know how to help you, teach you how to hold you and your employees accountable. And I think that will give a better work environment. How do you express to your clients about accountability?
Yeah, that's actually a great point. I think a lot of us, we gravitate to say we love leading, we hate managing. We have to be really good at both. So we coach the executives that we work with to make sure that they're always setting the right expectations, right? And setting right expectations are really important. And usually we're really comfortable with the number side of it, so the quantitative aspects. But when it comes to the quality, we feel like that's a little squishy or we feel uncomfortable, but that's just so important and powerful. So if we set the right expectations, it's really important that those expectations are kind of mutually agreed on. And a lot of times we don't do that as leaders, right? We kind of volunteer people what to do. And if you're voluntold, you're usually not happy. You didn't have any input, so you don't have much buy-in. So if we set the right expectations, step one, step two is really like recognize the wins. The 1 minute manager, if they're approximately right, let's make sure we recognize them, because the positive is so much better than the negative. And so if we are really celebrating our wins, and if we're starting to fail, let's redirect them so they can fail forward. Because if we're doing anything really well, right, we're not going to be perfect all the time. We're going to make
Exactly.
mistakes, but let's make those changes. Let's course correct, and let's get back on track. So that's the second step. And
Yeah.
then ultimately, let's measure what we do. If we expect something, let's make sure we're
Yeah.
inspecting it. And then, we can use those weekly scorecards to say, okay, do we need to fix a process? Do we just need to hold a person accountable? Like, let's really dial that in. Let's use the data to fix it versus feelings. So
Yep.
those are the 3 steps we coach people to accountability. And then the last thing I'll say on that is, ultimately, the formula for success is not the knowing part. So a lot of our clients know what to do. They've read the books, they get it, they can recite it, but they can't transfer it, right? So can you train it? How do you help your team apply it? So knowing plus the acting, right? So knowing plus acting equals the transformation. So transformation can't begin until you start to apply the knowledge you've got. So that's the formula for success.
You actually have it right here too. It's you focus the future focus,
That's
right?
right.
Put everything together and your goals and where you want to be, and then you've got your organizational structure, the way to get things, and to create the way, the guide. Everybody could go back to it. If you look at a city like the city of Frisco, they have a plan of attack, and they
That's
try to
right.
follow it. But then comes times as things change and evolve, you got to go back and look at it, right? You have to
That's
be
right.
able to know how to do that. And that's where, when you work with companies like yourself, they can say, hey, listen, it's been 5 years. We need to maybe readjust things, because you know what? You used to be making this product, but man, this product sold bigger than the others. We've got to figure out a better way to get that one going, and
That's
then,
right.
of course, that's where the results come into play. And then you've got your culture, how, as you're growing, how are things working within your organization, as the human resources aspect come into play, of making sure that people are comfortable within the organization. And then the last, of course, is execution, right? So executing things in a way that gives your company the lookability. Like, at the end of the day, how do people perceive your company? Do they see you as, oh my gosh, don't use that company? Or are they going, man, that company's the shit. That's the company I want to be working with, or that's the company I want to be working with, or that's the company that they get things done. And if you can get your company to be looking in those ways, everybody will just come to you for what you've become as an expert in potentially your field and or your business. And that's what I've been striving for, even in the world of Swypit. I learned from Jeff Crilly many years ago that and literally it was 2022, well, it was 22, 23 years ago. He was going around, he was working on Fox, and he had this, you would show up in these networking meetings. He had a book about free this or free advertising or whatever it was. I think I read a few things in there. But when you do read, if you could pick up one thing from those books, or two things or three things, I picked up one, and it said, become the expert in your field. And I have told him this, and he may have forgotten, but I'm like, dude, you taught me how to become the expert in the field, and that's what I've done. And
Yeah.
that's what Privis is, somebody you introduced me to.
Yeah.
And you were what, and this leads me to this. you
Absolutely.
you taught me what becoming an integrator is. And when you were working with Privis, you integrated. Tell people what an integrator is, and
Sure.
how that is something that you can help businesses with, because you've been integrating and being an integrator since 2000, probably 12. Is that
Yeah, you're dead on. Yeah. So, I will say that I've pretty much been in operations now for almost 30 years, right? And I've always
yeah,
been in that number two seat. Um, when we were talking about that company I used to be at, that was my wall talker in Frisco, Texas, EFA Processing, right? We were a business process
EFA?
outsourcer. I was president and COO, and I was pretty much the top executive in that organization. We had 225 people there and 150 near shore, and we were whiteboarding some of those basic principles. Well, you fast forward, that was probably circa 2008 or 10.
Yeah, because it was
It's funny.
originally in Addison.
That's right. Yeah, I read the book Traction around 2012, and I was like, hey, I'm really one of these integrator guys. I love helping somebody with a really big vision make it happen. Like,
That's me. Big
yeah,
vision.
absolutely 50,000 foot view, and wonder why nobody gets it. And then somebody like us will walk in and we become a translator. Say, hey, here's a 30,000 foot view. Now the team can start asking questions they get, right? And I think the two have to work really well together. And so, super blessed to be in a book about that visionary integrator relationship, right? The visionary is usually the CEO, really big picture, can see 3, 5, 10 years out. The integrator is usually much better at seeing that 1 to 3 year plan. What are the pieces and parts? Like, here's all the pieces of the puzzle. How do we arrange them? Right? We don't want to throw the pieces of the puzzle in the box. We don't want to take different pieces of the puzzle and give them to people when they're the wrong puzzle pieces. So, we just start to work and help them kind of make it simple. So there's a book, Rocket Fuel, which I was blessed to have a sentence or two written about me as an
I got those
integrator. But
all over here.
yeah, the integrator is that person who kind of plugs in between the CEO and the executive team, and then they can actually help the executive team, really lead that organization to execute and make those dreams reality. And so, I think that in the traction library, they always call it an integrator. There's, Vern Harnish. He's been around for decades, and he always calls it a leader versus a manager. And Simon Sinek with Start with Why says there's the why people and how people, but ultimately it's just we need to live in each other's strengths, right? So that right number two or chief operating officer, or we'll call it either chief execution officer, CXO, right? Those people really come in and help the team flourish, right? We're never going to slow the organization down enough for a big visionary like yourself. At the same time, all right, I should say move it fast enough for a visionary like yourself, and we're not going to slow it down enough for the rest of the company. But we live in that tension of saying, hey, this is what great looks like. We're going to get there together, and then we can have a conversation with you to say, hey, they're getting there. They're doing the right things. I hope
Very
that's
true.
helpful.
Yeah. No, listen, people don't realize that there's no real answer to anything. There's no guide to life, right? But there is a guide that can be useful with input from others to help them be successful.
It's
And
all
if
about
you
relationships.
you have an open mind and you create unique relationships that are, like, I call them core. I have a core group of people that I feel I could always talk to, and I can go, listen, I'm getting ready to do this. What do you think? I have a friend of mine who owns Dallas North Aquarium, and I remember sitting with him. We were having lunch, and I said, hey man, I'm thinking about buying a race car. I'm like, what do you think of that? He goes, are you insane? Don't do it. You know, I'm like, well, could be useful. And it turned out to be a big scam and everything. And I lost some money and whatever, but that's another story. But at the end of the day, I didn't listen to him at the time. And I should have, because he knew people in the race car business. But it turned out maybe if it was actually implemented, then I could have just maybe had some races and gone to and things, but it was just a total scam. But if I had just listened to him in the beginning, I may not have lost a few bucks and went from there. But anyways, get with the right people to help you get where you want to go, because there's no I in team, right?
Absolutely.
No I in team. So Paul, I'm just curious, but when you were, graduating from high school in 1990,
Yeah.
what the heck were you thinking that you were going to do? I want to go all the way back.
All the
When
way
you
back.
graduated and you went to college or whatever, but what did you think you were going to be?
Yeah. It was kind of last minute. So I went through, middle school and high school really thinking I was just going to probably continue to farm. So I farmed for my uncle since I was 9. I really started working, multiple jobs, in high school, and still farming full time for my uncle. And I just enjoyed it, but I met that gal who we talked about earlier, Tracy. in the summer before my senior year, and we were working at the same little place.
Where
And
was this now?
the Arcanum Dairy Pizza Lane in Arcanum, Ohio. And it's not there anymore, but I still remember it. And the owners, Chuck and Kelly, were great people, and we enjoyed working there. And I was 16 when I started. I worked there for about a year before I met Tracy. She came home for the summer to visit her dad, and we met and we began dating. And we did take a year off before Friends made it popular. We were on a break, and we got back together, as you know. But she convinced me to go down the path of getting into business versus, farming or working in a factory, which is more common there in Darke County, Ohio. And I actually changed at the last minute. I went from going to take a partial scholarship to play football at a small school to enrolling in DeVry, where I could see that I could get a business operations degree in less than 3 years and not take any breaks. And I hated school. So I was like, this is going to work for me. I just can't take any breaks. And I didn't. I had my bachelor's degree from DeVry in 2 years and 8 months. And the rest was kind of history. I was working for Pizza Hut. That's the way I paid my way through college. My parents made too much money to help. And so I had to find a way to borrow half and pay half as I went. And that was the path I chose. And I really just began to love business and operations. And I was the youngest unit manager of 10,000 units. Back then, I was still in my
At Pizza
teens.
Hut?
At Pizza Hut.
I
Yeah,
had no idea that you worked with Pizza Hut. Did you know I worked with Pizza Hut?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ozone Park, Queens. I was the assistant manager.
Yeah. There's two of the gentlemen in the executive boot camp, one from Philadelphia, the other from Austin this week, are actually lived for years in Columbus. And so when I told them I worked at the Eastland Pizza Hut, which is no longer there, and then I was assistant manager at Bryson Livingston Pizza Hut, which is no longer there, they're giving me the history, oh, that burned down by electric. So, but it's kind of like the small world moments in life. When I was at that Pizza Hut at Eastland Pizza Hut, all the Discover people used to come in. Well, when I was doing the business process outsourcing for debt settlement companies, we couldn't get Discover to settle with us. And then they just let them know, hey, our president used to work across the street from you. And I got on the phone. I started talking with one of the executives about Pizza Hut lunch buffet and how I trained people on the Pizza Hut lunch buffet. Next thing you know, we've got a forward flow agreement. We're settling debt at 40 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
All about relationships,
It's a relationship. And I as much as like I remember like when I was younger going, how do those people do all that stuff? And I figured I was going to be able to do everything on my own. I'm like, I don't need help from anybody. They're going to give me bad advice or something, And it took me a long time to come to the realization I needed help, and I needed help from outside sources. I needed help from people looking from the outside in to give you, strategic information. And I didn't realize how valuable it was. And then what I was able to master is creating people that I could refer to other people because they've had a history and they had knowledge and they had expertise. So that's what kind of made us a really valuable organization, and it reinforced our relationships with our own clients. So I love referring organizations that I could trust, and even ones that I personally use. I have a client, we just got back from Chicago doing an install for one of these franchises that we deal with. And it's a Korean rice donut called Mochi Nut. And we process the credit cards for a bunch of those locations around the country. And there were two opening up. So I went up there, we installed them. But I totally forgot when I was installing the one that when I originally was introduced to the fella in Schaumburg 3 months ago, he was mentioning something about insurance, and I go, "Oh, you should call my insurance guy. He's a broker and he could take care of you." And he goes, "Okay, yeah, send him over." So then 2 days ago in Chicago, he goes, "Oh my God, that insurance guy was amazing." And I mean, I totally forgot that I did that. Took me a second. I go, "Oh yeah, he's my personal insurance guy." So, you
Right.
know, you just create relationships and you forget sometimes that you've introduced somebody. I'm sure I've introduced you to somebody that I forgot that I
Absolutely.
introduced them to, but it's just natural now for me to just introduce people to people. and those relationships really work out. And if you're in business and you're not actually looking and utilizing relationships for a ton of things, then you need to check up from the neck up, because it's truly the best way to do business these days. I mean, my whole company is based on referrals. And while I
Absolutely.
do advertising, while I do these crazy swipe it shows, and I do the, TV commercials, it's all for branding. It's all there to help people have the knowledge the knowledge that there are experts in their field, and not everybody is going to be trying to take advantage of people. And
Yeah.
do your homework, right? If
Yeah.
somebody was to want to do their homework for you, of course, well, they may not see that you're actually in the insurance business. I think that's where you really honed a lot of your business knowledge was in insurance. Tell us a little bit about the insurance side of where you were working.
Sure. That's a great point. I was super blessed. Tracy and I, shortly after we were married, decided to move to Phoenix, Arizona. And that was when I uh, moved away from Ohio, born and raised in Ohio. Thought I loved it there until we got to move out to Phoenix, and really struggled with the heat in the beginning. But I found my way into kind of a startup situation, right? There was a holding company called Titan Holdings, a property and casualty insurer, and they had this small little entity called Titan Auto Insurance, and they were pioneering direct response centers, or DRCs. And so I was young, and I had that general manager experience from the Pizza Huts and United Dairy Farmers, and I thought I really wanted to be an HR person. So I just said, "Hey, I'm going to get an HR job." And so I took a role as a human resource supervisor, which was really a glorified payroll clerk. And every few weeks, they would almost double my responsibility. And
Wow.
within a few months, it was probably 6 or 7 months, I was actually part of the 7-person leadership team, and I became the person in charge of the Arizona operations. And I really learned a ton. To your point, I was able to apply some of that hospitality retail background into
Yep.
retail insurance. I helped them create a concept called Office in a Box, which helped us reduce the lead times from opening the store in about a year and a half, to open it in 60 to 90 days. And that team ended up selling, after I was there for a few years. Our operation grew from about 13 million to over 25 million in written
Wow.
premium. Combined ratio was like 98%, meaning my claims ratio plus our uh, expense ratio combined was 98%. And since insurance makes their money on the float, that was pretty solid, because most of the country at Titan Auto was running about 104, 105% combined ratio. So it was really a lot of fun. We were buying companies, and they would send those principals, which were 40 to 60-year-old people, come into town to learn from this 28-year-old. It was very humbling for me and them, and in many cases I learned probably more from them than they learned from me, but I showed them how to make the retail operations really successful.
That's
And
because you're an integrator.
because I was an integrator before it was a thing. And
Yep.
then I actually was super blessed to join that team. That team moved on. And that executive team started a new company called instantauto.com right here in Dallas, Texas. And when I joined there, I was more of like a market manager for the first few months, and I helped them open operations in Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Dallas. And they asked me to relocate here to become a call center director. So that was my first foray into learning sales and sales management. And I graduated the Tom Hopkins Sales Boot Camp along with my executive leaders, and really kind of learned the call center business inside and out. So I was used to taking all the stuff thrown on the wall, we'll say spaghetti on the wall, and making it
Is it
work and
sticking?
delivering it.
Is it
And now I
sticking?
got to, right. And now I got to actually learn how to sell it and close it. And so that was really, really powerful. So that was my experience in the insurance arena, right? So it was not quite 10 years, but it was in the specialty auto insurance arena. And I've taken a lot of those industry lessons and applied them in other industries.
Exactly. And and a lot of cases, and the reason I brought up that is because, everything I learned from business owners, whether they are successful or failures, I try to give those to the other business owners in their business to make them as successful. I mean, for me, if you're our client, we want you to be successful. I don't want people
Absolutely.
to spend money on stuff that they shouldn't spend money on, but I want to give them tools to make them helpfully make more money, because then as they grow, we grow with them, and then we get more income, obviously. So be call it being selfish by introducing all of my relationships to people, but I
Yeah.
think it's very useful, and it's a unique way to gain access to being successful in your own business. So that's why I brought that up. And of course, Famous is in that picture. He was working with
Absolutely.
AutoNation for however long. I don't remember where he is. He still with
Yeah.
AutoNation even?
Oh, he's the chief marketing officer and CTO for Blue Compass,
Yeah.
uh, the RV retailer that just sponsored the American Musical, Awards here in Frisco, Texas, the Star last
Was he
week.
here?
He was not here, but their company's doing amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're opening new locations left and right. So he's been there for a few years, and they've had amazing success. But
Yeah.
Famous and I have worked together, over the years, and we've known each other since we were in our 20s. And to your point, whether he was head of eBay Motors or Yahoo Auto or AutoNation, he was constantly tapping into those relationships in his network. And I
Yep.
think that's powerful because, like we've grown referral only. And a lot of people are like, well, how are you doing that? So, Previous Consulting, right, DBA for scaling, celebrating 3 years, June 1st. And it's all been
Woohoo.
through relationships and just taking care of, each other, right? So, to us,
Well,
clients are family, and we got to take care of each other.
exactly. If there was something that you wanted people to know about yourself that maybe I didn't ask, what would that be?
Uh, I suppose probably just that, my heart. It's just, I really have a passion for people, and I love to see people be successful. And I don't often, you know, think that comes out. You're busy and you're in the moment, but for me, everything truly is transformational. There's nothing that's transactional, and a lot of times, the that positive recognition or thank you, it means the world. A lot of us probably, you wouldn't think need that or want that, but yeah, I'd say that it's my heart. I'm always trying to help people make time.
I love that. You just came up with a whole new book name. Be transformational instead of transactional. Wow, look
Yeah,
at that.
I appreciate that.
Man, that's good. That's good. Anybody that wants to check out Mr. Paul and Force Scaling, they can go to forcescaling.com. He's got a LinkedIn page. They got probably a Facebook page. They got, numerous ways to contact them, but Google Force Scaling, find them, check them out. If you can't find them and you just thought of, I saw this on the Swypit Show, contact us. We'll put you in
Yeah,
touch with Paul. And of course, this is the Swipe It Show right here on the Success Network. And if you like what you saw, please like it. If you want to share it and get others to gain some knowledge about relationships or things of that nature, please do that as well. Like, comment, share. Of course, the Swipe It Show right here on the Success Network. We love you. We care about you. That's why we do these things. And of course, Ryan, you've got your work cut out for you with editing this wonderful show. We appreciate you and all you're doing for us. And we'll catch you next time on the Swipe It Show.